Okay, and we are here. It is Masculine Geek number 119. This was originally supposed to be D&D, and that's not happening tonight. We'll pick it up when we reschedule it. So tonight we are still going to talk tabletop gaming, nerd shit, D&D, all the rest. So that's the tentative plan. We'll see what happens. Things go off the rails sometimes, and that's fine.
I actually have a thought to set it off or to start this conversation off. It's always been on my mind as far as board games are concerned. Most of the or tabletop games, most of them involve dice or die, and that adds the element of chance or luck or whatever you want to call it. But there's some games that there's more strategy and thinking into it than just. There's some that are just it's really a lot of luck, and then there's some where luck can come involved and it can play a role, but ultimately it's more slanted or weighted on the ability of the player and stuff like that. So I guess, what are your thoughts on games that are more skill oriented as opposed to luck? Like, what's the most luck based tabletop game that relies on die?
Oh man. I'm thinking about this because one of the things some background. My brother Will and I have been in this perpetual game design and play testing cycle, and he has literally invested thousands in artwork, commissioned all this artwork for all these games that we have in various stages of development. And we've even gone to what is it called? There's an event in Milwaukee. It is I forget, the Protospiel, where all these different game developers bring their prototypes and they play test with other developers, and everybody gives everybody feedback. And we've gotten tremendous feedback and all this stuff, but we just need to sit down and hammer out the manual and then do the code. Anyways, there's a bunch of stuff. One of the things that comes up in discussion regularly is that there is the idea of a random generator and a dice or a card, a deck that's shuffled. It's a random generator. So you have some input that's random, and then you have certain rules as to how you can handle that. Now, there is a continuum of randomness where at one end, almost everything is random and it can't be completely random, or it's not really a game. It's just an extra, like war isn't a game because there's no decision-making process. You shuffle the cards, both people have them. It's not a game. It's just what is the outcome's determined before you even start. There's no input. There's nothing to it. So you have mostly random with minimal input. And then on the other side, you have things like chess, where there's no randomness at all. The board always starts the same way. You have a fixed set of rules that you follow. But then there's also another axis, which is simplicity and complexity. And there seems to be, if you look at different genres of games, like you've got your Euro games, which tend to be very, very high in decision-making with less randomness and more complex rules. And then you've got your more, and I hate the term, I would just say American games as opposed to Euro style, but they'll call them like Ameritrash, which tend to be a little bit more random, simpler rules, like your Zombicide and things like that. And I think that it depends on what the theme is, but I think that there is a need for randomness in that you want to have unexpected inputs to react to. So I think it makes for a more
interesting and spontaneous, I think, and that reflects reality. One of the things that comes to mind, here's the geek part of me coming out, is that people think of McClellan from the Civil War as being less competent than, say, General Sherman. And the funny thing is, I was taking a history class in college and learned that McClellan and Sherman attempted the exact same invasion of the South. The difference between them was it rained on McClellan in parts of Virginia where that just turns to mud. You can't move your troops. It didn't rain for Sherman. And so there was that line from, if you've seen Guns of Navarone, where there's the intelligence officer and he says, wasn't it when Napoleon is listening to generals for promotion, he would say, yes, I know he's brilliant, but is he lucky? Right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea that there's got to be luck involved, and somebody who is predisposed to being lucky, it's like, I want him. The guy who he's going to lead his troops out on battle where the terrain's going to, like, the weather's going to be clear, like the weather chaplain from World War II, he prays for clear skies. He gets clear skies and patents. Like, yeah, I want him decorated.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the challenge of designing the games, though, is that you want a certain amount of randomness so that with the random inputs, you have interesting situations and interesting decisions to make. Basically, you have a problem that is going to be a little bit different each time you play, depending on whatever the random generators are.
Right.
But it has to be something that can't sway if you have a scoring system, or if you have certain advantages and disadvantages, the randomness can't cause too much of a swing in the relative, positions of the players on the leaderboard or whatever, that a random event can completely put somebody so far ahead earlier in the game that it's a blowout for everybody else.
Right.
So there needs to also be sort of rubber, I don't know if you heard the term, rubber banding mechanisms that make sure that if somebody does, the more you get ahead, the more difficult it is to further your lead. And the further you get behind, the easier it is to catch up. So this is one of the hardest things about developing the game, is that when you sit down, sometimes you have this idea and it just seems like it's the most awesome thing ever. And then when you start to actually test it, you find it's completely broken in ways that you've never anticipated.
Right.
And a lot of times it comes down to adjusting how much the randomness affects the outcomes of your decisions. If you don't have enough randomness, then if it's pure strategy without any kind of random input, then I wouldn't say it becomes monotonous, but you don't have as much variety. There's not as much replayability for a lot of games. And sometimes, I'm going off on a tangent here, but the randomness, the thing that I love about some of the randomness too, is occasionally, if it's well done, it results in completely unexpected things happening, or things happening at times where you could be getting completely fucked in a game and you're getting your ass kicked, and suddenly that thing happens at just the right time for you to be able to pull a win out of your ass when otherwise it wouldn't have been possible. Have any of you guys played Zombicide?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it, but I've never played it.
That's fun.
Absolutely love Zombicide. One of the things that I like about that is that, and for those of you who have never played, if you go look up Zombicide by Simon Games, a lot of fun. But they have decks that spawn these zombies.
Every turn, yep.
Every turn, and depending on how many spawn points, there can be different ones spawning. And there are these really powerful zombies called abominations. And if an abomination shows up later in the game, it's not horrible. But there's a possibility sometimes of them showing up earlier, when you're either completely unprepared or everybody is already in a bad situation, and suddenly it's like
absolute killer wandering monster.
Yeah. But there's also these Molotovs. Without going off too much on Zombicide, we have been in situations in this game where we were almost certain, okay, we're screwed. It's just a matter of how much longer can we possibly eke out a win here. And in earlier versions, to have a Molotov cocktail, which would basically allow you to clear out a huge area of zombies, and it was the only thing that would kill the abomination, you had to find cards for both the glass bottle and the gasoline, so you could combine them, so you could have that. Now it's just the thing, and it seemed that you almost never got that combination because you would have to search buildings and all this. But we were in this game, and somebody just managed to get that card at just the right time, managed to put together the Molotov, and just before everything would have been wiped out, pulled out not the instant win, but prevented what otherwise was a almost positive wipeout and end of the game. So that little bit of random thing that happened at just that right time what do they call it? Fiero. When you have those moments where it's like, holy crap, this is awesome. And I don't think that you get those kind of moments. And going the other way, the Schadenfreude or Schadenfreude, I don't know.
Schadenfreude.
When another player who might be ahead of the rest of you suddenly has absolutely shit luck that allows everybody else to catch up or allows maybe you to put those kind of things that happen randomly when you have these random inputs and random events, I think make for more exciting moments in games than when you just have straight strategy without any kind of randomness. So I think if you want a really, really good game, you have to have some kind of a balance. And you mentioned the Civil War, even with things like war games, if you had a deck of cards that had just random things that could happen that influenced like weather or maybe some sort of event, just having something like that you have no idea what's going to happen during your play. You say, okay, we're gonna pull an environment card. Oh crap, it's raining.
Yeah, a friend of mine and I, we designed a sort of a risk type game back in 1997, and we called it medieval warfare. And we had something called fate cards. And after each end of each player's turn, a fate card was drawn, and it had exactly those type of random occurrences. There were some good things in there, but they were mainly fuck cards.
So another example of like not necessarily chance, but just freak like turn of events is historically was Frederick the Great. He's in the middle of this war and he's losing, and it looks like all is lost, and suddenly the Tsar of Russia dies, and I can't remember who replaced who it was. I think it was Catherine the Great or somebody, but formerly it was an enemy. Russia was one of the people fighting the Prussians, and then the new leader liked Frederick the Great, so became an ally. Completely changed the outcome of the war and switched sides. So like that's an example of like where a historical event is shaped by the death of one person or just some small thing happening. Or, for example, Lee's orders for the Battle of Antietam is found wrapped around cigars by a bunch of Union cavalry. Like all these little weird things that like would be great in a board game. Like if you were playing the Civil War, your orders were found wrapped in cigars. Now the enemy knows where you're going to be positioned, and it may be in a stalemate or a draw, but it otherwise probably would have been a victory or something like that. So this is an example of where in board games or tabletop games, introducing chance or just some freak coincidence is accurate to real world. That's, I think, one of the problems with chess and some other games is that they're too logical, and life is not based around pure logic. There's always elements that end up interfering with what's going on, like the weather. You can't predict the weather when you're playing a battle.
Well, and you can't predict the fact that if I tell you to do something, if practicable, what's practicable to me is not necessarily what's practicable to you.
Right.
So
take this hill if practical. Oh.
Okay. Well,
It's not practical for me, but it's practical for my subordinate who now wants you sacked.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, it seems like with games, it's either the luck of the draw or the luck of the roll. So, I mean, it's either dice or cards. And with things like Legend of the Five Rings, which I'm familiar with, as opposed to, say, something like Magic the Gathering, you have certain rules as far as how you can build your deck, insofar as you have stronghold cards, and the cards that go there as far as your personalities and things like that. You have your fate cards, which, could be followers, weapons, armor, or actions or reactions, cards that can change, that allow you to do something or allow you to behave a certain way if your enemy does something. And then within that, you build the deck and try to have a certain synergy with the cards in your deck, so that even though I'm limited to 3 apiece, these cards play well with this, these cards play well with this. So I have a certain plan in mind as far as what my deck does, what my cards do, so that ultimately in a certain play environment, my odds of winning are better or worse depending on who I'm going against. And then there are all the other variables as far as, well, someone designs a deck to take that's purely military. So it's a grunt attack crush thing deck that doesn't worry about things like honor, doesn't worry about things like dishonor. Another person has a deck that's dueling, so that they kill off all your personalities in duels before they can ever muster any kind of military action. Cards that do political things. And then within like the structure of various board games, you have the same kind of random thing. If you can strategize that, okay, you are going to fight the outbreak in India while we are developing the vaccine here, referring to pandemic, which I've seen played, but not played myself because I'm more into RPGs than board games. But that's all well and good, but you draw the wrong card and the game's over. You've lost. Yeah, because it doesn't matter how smart you were playing and how great you were playing together, because it's a co-op game. You draw the wrong card, you lose. And that's a prime example of one of those games that's hugely popular. But you can lose the game on the first turn. Or you can play for an hour.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It seemed when we played, it seemed almost about 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a good balance. And here's the thing about that too is with cooperative games,
mm-hmm.
there has to be a very real chance of losing to the game for there to be any enjoyment in beating it. So that's a trick, though, is to get the balance where it is hard enough that it's rewarding, but not so hard that it's frustrating that all you do is get your ass kicked and you just keep up on it.
Well, that was one of the selling points of D&D back in the old days. I mean, you had true D&D, you and your buddies sitting around playing. The object of the game is to kill things, break things, build your reputations in the game, get gold, do stuff, have a really good time with your buddies. But in old school D&D, there is the very good possibility that, it doesn't matter that you're 18 and fresh off the farm and going off on an adventure to be a fighter, or, you're 22 and fresh out of some magic academy somewhere. There's a very good possibility that you could die. And that's fine at first level. But even as the game progressed, even as you were approaching named levels, you still had the possibility, if your DM was doing it right, that you could die. There's a time to attack the demon and negotiate.
That's why I always enjoyed and appreciated the wandering monster tables.
Yeah.
And the later editions have seemed to have gotten away from that.
Well, they've gotten away from that. They've gotten away from the whole idea of henchmen and hirelings. Which Gary's talked on numerous times, both at conventions and in the pages of Dragon Magazine, how important that was and how he thought that was an aspect of the game that some players ignored and they really kind of missed out, because there were certain modules that were designed thinking that, yes, this is for 4 to 6 players between levels 3 and 6, but you weren't really going to be only 4 or 6 characters going through the adventures, because each of you would probably have a hireling or two that you guys bought, that recruited as a party. So that's another couple, non-player characters that are in your group. So now you're up to 8. And then, of course, depending on who you were, your cleric may have some kind of acolyte with him. Your fighter may be high enough that he's reached a point where he has 2 henchmen, because, oh my God, go look at the tables in the advanced player's the player's handbook for advanced D&D, and it's listed right there that's one of the benefits for reaching that level. And so there were all these things that were built into the game that have been kind of swept away or forgotten because they don't mesh, I guess, with the video game mentality that the modern games are trying to sell to players. I mean,
a lot of the problem with the
Yeah.
modern games are the modern iterations of D&D is it's almost entirely story driven. It's too top heavy with theory of the mind, which was fine, but that's not what Gary Gygax and the originators had in mind.
No, that was Vampire the Masquerade.
Exactly, and over time it's morphed into this, and the game mechanics and these nuances that we're talking about are completely forgotten. Or, as Red Crusader has pointed out, they're in add-on books, extra supplements that you can use or forget about if you wish. So
right.
That's a small issue I have with them. Yeah,
that's an issue I have as well. But then again, there are a lot of issues I have, like people. Anita Sleestack, who talks about how the old school, besides all the ist that old school RPGs had in abundance, according to her, they were all sandbox games that pushed players in one direction, allowing them no ability to think outside the box or play outside the box. And I don't know about you gentlemen, but I have DM'd more than my fair share of games over the decades.
Correct.
And played. And it doesn't matter what the module was laid out to do. It doesn't matter what your best friend spent the last 6 months designing for you guys to do over the summer. A player gets a wild hair up their behind, and you see where that goes. It's always been that way. It's always allowed that to happen. And even Gary encouraged that to happen to a degree, as long as you were, playing the game. And so it just, I feel like it's like that line from Chronicles of Narnia, don't quote the old magic to me, which I was there when it was written. It's listening to these millennial trying to make a buck off of bashing, critiquing, whatever. They weren't around to actually witness, and I don't know where they pull their intel from out of the ether or out of their behinds, but it wasn't like that. It's like I was there and played the game, and that's not how it was. But I'm glad you're making a buck off this. So way to go with that grift economy, and I'm glad you got that dopamine hit, because it's obvious that you're a major addict to it. So that kind of stuff frustrates the snot out of me as well. And I understand the games change. I understand the demographics change. I understand your market change. I have no problem in the grand scheme of things with companies doing that. But
no, it has to move. It's like a shark. It has to move forward or it's going to die.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like if we decided, hey, give me a month. I'm going to pull out all my old first edition books, either, basic AD&D or advanced AD&D. I'm going to sit down, just kind of like refresh my memory a little bit. And I want all you guys to roll up characters, and we're doing it really old school. You roll 3 6-sided dice and you write down the numbers as you roll them. And I don't care that you wanted to play a fighter Drew. It's whatever you roll. And
or you just or you just go ahead and hand out convention characters pre-made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay, I need, one of you to be a fighter, one of you to be a rogue, one of you to be a, whatever. And it's like, here's a couple of examples. So pick what, who wants to be the fighter? All right, here's your choices. Pick one and just do it. So it's not like we can't do that. And hell, we could play Star Frontiers if we wanted. And that would not break my heart. But, so the stuff is there. And the fact that even though buying an actual vintage edition of any of these books can get a little pricey depending on what you're looking for, it's not like a lot of this stuff isn't available as either PDFs on drive-through or even print on demand. What you're muted, Drew? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, am I still?
Yeah, there you go.
It's all out there. The PDFs for everything, and Now, I would not promote sharing any copyrighted materials from any company that is currently publishing and selling them. But some of these things have been out of print. You can't buy them except on the used market, so it's not taking sales from anybody. And they're all over. I mean, you can go and get everything that you could possibly want from the original AD&D or from D&D, AD&D, second edition, all of that stuff. It's even you can get every friggin' copy of Dragon magazine going way back. It's there if you want to do a little digging for it. In fact, I'm talking with a friend of mine. We used to play when we were kids, and we're trying to get the group that we played with when we were like in grade school together and get an online game going, because some of them are in Wisconsin. I'm down here. I think one might be in Utah or something right now. So we're trying to do that, but that's what we're going to do, because that's what we're doing then, second edition, and going around and up all that stuff. Including, remember that big fat the monstrous compendium that came in the binder?
Yeah.
So
I still have some of those.
Dig all that up again and go back to. I think we're still using Thaco in the second edition.
I like Thaco. And those monstrous compendium binders were pieces of shit. It was completely easy. Yeah, it was completely easy to lose those pages and have them rip. The worst idea ever.
Yeah, I got lucky. I managed to score 2 different editions of the second edition Monster Compendium in the hardcover bound versions. So nice. One with like a black cover, one with a white cover. So
there are people who are refurbishing these too. I can't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing pictures of somebody they had sent their older copies to some guy who had taken them and completely redone the cover and the binding and everything, fixed it up for them. So
the book binder,
yeah. I wish I remember where I saw it, because it was just really cool to see what they were able to do.
Yeah. Well, some of these print on demand, the final products are really nice. They are every bit as nice, in some cases even nicer.
They hold up well, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I
saw someone. Let me know where those are, because I'll get some printed up and send them around to the group that we're going to play with.
Head over to the dmsguild.com, and what you'll do is you'll type in a title or something close approximation to the title that you want. You'll get your search come up. You choose one, and you'll see watermarked PDF, soft cover, or you can buy both at the same time.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I know Drive-Thru RPG offers certain things, because I know someone just recently bought and was showing a comparison of they bought a print-on-demand copy of the original Gamma World, not Metamorphosis Alpha, but the Gamma World edition, and then we're showing their print-on-demand version of the game, and of course, their original version is kind of yellowed or brown, and but the print on demand, nice white pages, very crisp looking inks and illustrations, which with that old line art that was predominant in those old games from the 80s, it's really nice seeing them in kind of a pristine condition, because there are some really beautiful stuff that was done in those black and white illustrations, which of course, in most modern RPGs, it's not like that, which is fine. Cause I mean, I love some of the new art, but yeah.
Right, so this is a print on demand reprint. All right. It's the basic, it's the introductory module.
Sweet.
What the 1979 my car. It's where you can fill out the monster and the treasure for each room. It holds up well. It's sturdy. Now here is the original Bone Hill.
Nice.
And it's you have these were all the covers were always detached from the content, because this is what you could use as a DM screen. There was an impromptu DM screen. And the reason why all the maps inside were blue was because at the time, they didn't want anyone Xeroxing you. Xerox will not copy your Xerox and whatnot will not pick up blueprint. So you couldn't copy it and, send it out and reuse it and whatnot. So that was their little workaround for that. But
consider that somebody, if they really wanted to, could just take a pen and trace over it in black.
Well, most people are lazy fucks. They're going to be like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go buy it. I mean, there are some spurgs out there that would do that, and hey, we've all done as kids. We've all done that, but for the most part, you wanted the original. I mean, there was a distinct form of magic. Not to play on words here, but it was these things were magical as kids. These kind of things. So to see these reprinted and the decent quality. I would like to see it with the detachable cover, but that's fine.
DM screens are, in fact, that's the one thing. I have not yet gotten around to, but one of these days I want to go and buy a bunch of leather and wood and hinges and everything and put together a really nice fold up a DM screen for myself with the dice tray.
Cool.
Yeah.
On my to-do list.
I've seen a lot of those custom built ones that do exactly what you're talking about. Those things go for a pretty penny.
Oh yeah.
They're not cheap. $200, $300, $400.
In fact,
with a built-in base tower.
Instead of hinges, because I was thinking like leather bound with some brass hinges. What I might do is just get some panels, cover them with leather, and maybe put a metal panel on the inside so I can use magnets to attach stuff to it. And maybe some felt or something, but instead of hinges,
you can use those magnets to show marching order and initiative.
That's why I could just make magnets for everything, and with a 3D printer, I could actually print a different color, all the stuff, and then just glue magnets into the back of it. But what I was thinking is getting like some really good like leather and using it to almost lace it so that it can fold up that way.
I like that idea.
Now I'm going to have to make this. But yeah, one of the nice things about having a 3D printer, being able to do all that.
I like it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That'll be my project for the summer.
Yeah, seriously.
The DM screen that I'll never use because everything is online. But it'll be fun.
You could tilt your webcam down and still do it for effect. That would still be cool.
Well, that's the other. I've actually got I've got two webcams. Or
have your webcam coming in at a side angle, like a 45-degree side angle.
Well, that's what I need to do. Is I need to figure out, because I don't have any spare USB ports. Is the problem? So I need to figure out how I can get this.
Get yourself a USB hub. Get a high-speed USB hub.
Yep.
Now we're using Streamyard for the streaming. Don't they have an option where you can switch back and forth between the different?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe I haven't tried it, so it's.
I'll have to check that out because
if anyone out there in the chat knows the answer to that question, please feel free to chime in.
I've got more tripods and stands and stuff, so I could set it up and have like another side table and run that over, so I could do everything on the side table with another camera and just flip back and forth between.
Yeah.
That'll be my project. Now I'm excited. I want to make something.
Right. And now I want to run this Bone Hill game. This is an awesome. I mean, and this wasn't even like this big titted chick and some dude with his fucking junk being X-rayed. It's just like a fucking kick-ass cover, and none of that actually happens in the adventure, but it caught your eye.
They couldn't even do that cover today.
I was about to say that would be a big no-no.
Freaking out over it.
It's exactly. All right. They'd be complaining about the size of the tits, is what they'd be complaining about.
Yeah, they're not proportional to female body.
Exactly.
My favorite is, where are her organs?
They're there, you fucking retard.
Yeah.
Usually the ones complaining about that are ugly and fat and don't have the tits. They want the tits because that's magical. That draws male attention, and they're not getting it. So Anyway,
Dude, that answers like huge chunk of life questions.
that pretty much that takes care of all issues on social media as well. You can always tell the guys who aren't getting laid. It's like, yeah, you're not getting laid, you fucking idiot.
And also the girls who aren't getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
They have avatars, and they're like, "Why is this girl? This is an unrealistic depiction of women's bodies." It's like, yeah,
yes, Mrs. Avatar.
Mrs. Avatar.
Retarded.
Yes, Mrs. holding the camera up like this.
Speaking of depictions of women's bodies, this came in the mail today, and my wife freaked out. She's like, "You're not going to wear that where you go?" See. Liberty and justice for all.
I like it.
I saw the picture on somebody's somebody posted it on Twitter, not the shirt but the picture, and I thought, holy crap, I need to get that on a shirt. And I think, you know what, somebody's probably already put it on a shirt. About 10 minutes later, I managed to find this.
Awesome.
If anybody wants, I'll post a link later. I can't remember where, but I've got an email confirmation from them, so I'll dig that up.
That's right. Hit the like button, leave a comment, hit the notification bell. So, well, it's sort of hit or miss lately with YouTube whether or not they alert you that YouTube channels go live. So we're not exactly toting the party line. So we're not in good graces with YouTube.
Karen does not like us.
No, and as well she shouldn't.
Yeah,
and we don't like Karen either, so it works out nicely.
Yep.
But getting back to your DM screen, Drew, I now I want to see that. I want to by the end of the summer. I want to see that.
So this is my concept, and I'm open for any input. I'm going to probably get a bunch of 10-inch by 10-inch or maybe 10 by 12 thin pieces of sheet metal. I'm thinking maybe about 1/8 inch or so, round the corners. And then, I don't want to cut up the leather. So basically round and smooth the corners. And then I'll drill along one side, put leather over the back, fold it over, and then cover the other side with some sort of a felt. And then use lacing to connect them. So I'll probably have like 3 panels that fold over so that I can then go and use magnets on the front or the back that indicate party order and everything. And what I could do is have 3D print different like icons and and I've got a shit ton of, I've got an entire like work area with the 3D printing, and I've got magnets, I've got bearings, I've got all sorts of screws and other parts, so that if I make something that I need to assemble or use magnets for, I've got all that shit there. So I can make a bunch of different magnetic indicators for the players, for player order and monsters, tokens representing conditions for each of the players.
Exactly.
Set it up so that I can, and just have some magnets so I can attach maps and other things inside. And because it's going,
we need to do a meetup at your place so you can run a game for us.
Yeah.
And I can do a bunch of stuff with it. Pockets. I'm going to have to sit down and make a wish list of what I want on it based on because I've got a bunch of DM screens and they've got all this shit on the inside, and I barely use half of it, but there's some other stuff that I do use regularly that I have in a binder. So I would pull that out and use that to make my tables, laminate them, slap them on there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make this.
I like it.
Yeah, we're really living in kind of a strange time, despite a lot of the nonsense that goes around as far as being into these sorts of interest and hobbies. The fact that, well, gee, I'm going to start running a Star Trek game based on the old FASA rules. So I may do the ship combat. So, gee, I could really use some old Starship miniatures. Well, gee, I'll just print up some Klingon battle cruisers. I'll print up, and the same's true for Star Frontiers. There are guys out there that have the programs to print out the various ships from the Star Frontiers game.
You can get the models from us. Everything. Yeah. I went and I still haven't assembled it because I still need to do a bunch of painting. But I went and I printed up a Killdozer.
I was about to say it looks like a Killdozer.
It is the Killdozer. So I'm going to take it apart and paint it before I glue everything together. Yeah. But it took me maybe about 10 minutes to find the model online. And I've got a friend, actually one of the guys from the original D&D group, who has been going, and he's collector, all sorts of Star Wars memorabilia, and he has a lot of old, like the Millennium Falcon, X-Wings, and stuff that there's pieces missing. He has been able to find the models for parts for all of these things and print out the missing and broken parts and then paint them and everything to completely refurbish them. Find the graphics for the DK. You remember the old Millennium, like big ass Millennium Falcon?
Oh yeah.
Off? He found the graphics for the printout for that cardboard insert that goes inside there. Was able to get that printed and has what looks like a brand. It's refurbished, but he does such an amazing job 3D printing the parts and then fixing up and refurbishing these things. If you didn't know, you'd think it just came out of the box. The miniatures, you name it, it's the Star Wars stuff, Star Trek. I mean, anything that you could imagine, somebody's making miniatures for.
Well, there have been guys that have made things that never existed for certain toy lines from back in the 80s. So someone recently printed out 3D Vipers from Battlestar Galactica for the 3 and 3/6 inch action figures. And, he did them for like Blue Squadron. He did them for Silver Spar Squadron, which flew off the Pegasus. So, and he also printed off helmets for the Vipers. So if you have the original Starbuck figure, you now have a helmet, the Egyptian style helmet for your Starbuck figure, and a Viper he'll fit in, which, as someone who has a habit of collecting toys and things like that, that's just, that kind of stuff is great. And the fact that, it's a pretty good time to be a geek or a nerd or whatever term you want to use, if you're smart about it and recognize that Hollywood and a lot of the big corporations see you as an easy mark. You've got to be, quote unquote, red pilled to that, as well as the other stuff going on. But I mean, if you're smart, if you're a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of desire or passion, and want to make something happen, you can do it because the tools exist. And gee, guess who built those tools? That's a whole other thing.
Christian, most of the collectibles are going to have a patent and copyright, and sometimes a date on the bottom or somewhere on the collectible. That's one giveaway. I guess unless you were to find some way to incorporate that into your 3D printing,
right? And most of the printers you can usually tell, because even if you print on a very high quality and do a lot of sanding and prep work and stuff, there are things you can tell, as far as the weight of something, because generally
certain
3D
plastics
printing
and resins that are used.
It would depend on. It would be a lot harder to do with the FDM printers than with the resin printers. But some of the detail that you can get with the small miniatures on some of the resin printers is absolutely just unbelievable. We've got a pair of FDM printers, and then we got a resin printer that I keep in the garage because you don't want to be breathing that crap. But the miniatures that we've made on the resin, and I don't think I've got any sitting on the desk right now, but some of the miniatures that we've printed on that, done at least as good, if not better, than a lot of the stuff that we've bought. And you're paying of course, you're paying for the printer, and you're paying for, if you get like a wash and cure station, all that for the resin. But if you print enough of those miniatures, if you're printing terrain pieces, after a while, I mean, it pays for itself. I mean, if you went down to some of these hobby shops, you're paying, depending on what you're getting, maybe anywhere from $5 to 20, 30 for some of these miniatures.
Yeah.
If you make 10 of those bigger miniatures, you've more than paid for the price of some of these smaller resin printers.
And even in some of the larger figurines that are limited runs, like the dragons, the beholders, and shit.
Just sent me a picture of a Tiamat that he was earlier. Might even have.
But yeah, those large figurines are expensive. I'm sure it's a little bit cheaper on your own printer.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can. Probably not, but that is.
I can see it now. Yeah,
yet, and he still has to remove the supports from it. But I mean, that's and you can't really tell unless you know the size of the printer. But that thing is probably about this big.
Oh shit!
It's probably about
Size
8
of a
inches
fucking
across.
small dog.
So it's when it's done when the other head pieces and wings are attached, it's going to be massive compared to like the 28 millimeter miniatures. So, I need to print one actually. That'll be my next. And he did that with the FDM printer, but the detail still looks really good.
Yeah, that one even unpainted. That looked really cool.
Yeah,
This is going to have to be our next project too. I miss. I mean, I love playing with you guys. It's been awesome, but I really do miss having a group of people come over and sit around the table and being able to have everybody bring their miniatures and me hauling out stuff.
And you get your new DM screen when that gets done. Yeah.
I'm looking forward.
My buddies that I have around the neighborhood here. We're starting our live game back up the end of June. We haven't gamed in over a year, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, I've got a few people around here that are constantly bugging me to run something, and it's partially it's a matter of timing, and partially it's a matter of, you guys know as well as I do, you've got to have a certain chemistry with the group you're playing with. Yeah. So I mean,
correct.
You've got to like the people that you game with, or else.
Well, that's why going to like. Exactly. That's why Aaron has such a hard time when he goes out to the game stores and comic book shops for these one-off games.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
right.
Yeah, because
it's just too difficult.
No, I mean, I know I would have challenging time putting up with certain people, and I can only imagine for Aaron, it's like on a whole other level.
We got lucky here.
Yeah.
We've got a good group.
It's true. It's like I play a board game every month with friends. Some of them I've known, like I grew up with, and so it's just a totally different dynamic when you're playing with someone you've known for 20 years as opposed to someone you've known for 20 seconds.
Especially if you're doing social deduction games,
right? Because you're like,
like
you know how they operate. And it's
like a truth or dare kind of game.
Yeah. Some of these games, it's totally like I already know what he's gonna do because I've known the guy for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's surprising about it, as opposed to
you know what they're like. You know what they're like when the chips are down and things things don't go their way.
Right? Are they gonna handle it well? Are they emotionally mature? Some of them may not be, but you can still they're mature enough to where you can make fun of them for not being.
Yeah, because I mean, when you go to a game store, you never know when you sit down with a group of people that
chocolates.
Yeah, and the one person that it's like they have to be the star of the game. It's like they're playing a video game in their mind, and they are the hero, and they get to fight all the monsters, and they get the best choice of treasure, and they don't have time to listen, they don't have time to strategize or plot with the other guys in the group, and and conversely, there's some people that it's like their dice rolls, they're having we've all had crappy nights where it's like our dice just are not there. We're trapped in a net. Drew knows all about off. It's just not happening. But there's some people that have like the emotional maturity of a spoiled 6-year-old, and it's like, it's like, dude, it's just a game. Your dwarf's not really going to die,
Aaron was explaining that the one incident where the guy was practically in tears because he couldn't cast the spell he wanted to cast.
Yeah.
This is like, but that's the thing is like, I think that's why who you're playing with having that that sense of
what the hell?
Yeah, what are you doing there?
Let's put that on you, see?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ass, eh? You should buy my books, see?
Buy TJ's books, you fuckers.
Right. I'm a shameless promoter. It has to do with the appreciating players who show up basically who are going to be emotionally mature during the game. They're not going to convey a bunch of mentally ill behavior. They're not going to be injecting politics or just weird stuff where, you know, they take it too seriously. Something like that.
I'm kind of, maybe it's just me. I'm picturing Aaron at this game store bouncing dice off the kid's head as he's crying, kind of like the great Santini in the basketball. You guys remember that? Robert Duvall. Yeah, just, you gonna cry for me some more?
That's right. Cry. That's too funny. We have to auction. We should auction or do a giveaway, Drew, for your shitty 20-sided cursed dice.
If anybody wants, they can. I think I got it at MegaCon from one of the vendors there. They probably cursed it before they gave it to me.
Probably. Maybe somebody had it down their pants and they wore it around the con, and then you took it out and you bought it. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, they didn't see you as being this 300-pound mouth breather who hasn't showered in a week with acne and still living in your mom's basement, and you know, the stereotype.
Although this gave me an idea of how I could take some cam girls and use them to sell dice. This dice was in this girl for a full day.
It was shoved right up her cooter and left there for 24 hours.
If these guys are going to pay what, $30-something for this one e-girls or cam girl, whatever the hell they call it,
pussy juice drenched dice. There you go.
There. Hey, simps have money.
I'm not involved with any of this.
This really devolved. Yes.
TGA disavows this whole thing.
I disavow and fired, and you're fired. Yeah.
I'm just thinking this. There are probably I as ridiculous as it sounds, there would probably be a market.
It would probably be a big seller for a couple of months. Yeah.
Some people buy just for the novelty.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give the whole thing away if I'm putting this out here. But apparently there was an AI like chick she wasn't even real, some AI girl that was developed. And I don't know, I can't remember the details, only that there were a bunch of people simping for this fake AI girl. So you could just put something together like that and make this shit up and say it.
Yeah, and I think it was a guy who created the program and everything. So there was some guy getting simp money because he created a fake cam girl. Yeah.
Like a video game girlfriend or something.
Yeah. So, hey, I've seen guys walking around with their hug pillows, calling them their waifu, my waifu, or whatever at conventions.
God help us. God help us.
God, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We're really going down a weird rabbit hole here. So
that was a joke. I thought that was something that people said to make fun of like over the top anime fans. Are you saying that there are actually
there are guys like that, just like there are girls that have these really freaky looking, almost marionette looking dolls that they walk around holding at conventions that are their friend or their baby or whatever, and they talk and this is April. April likes your costume. Do you want to be April's friend? I tell you, fandom was so much better when it was a subculture that was on the fringes, as opposed to being this more mainstream thing that is just filled with people on the fringes.
If I was a psychiatrist, I would set up a booth in these places and probably. Oh man!
It's like for the cost of that perfect grade Gundam kit, I'll give you a half-hour, kid. But yeah, it's and it's weird. But then again, there's guys like us. I mean, that would be at what'd you say? You bought the dice at MegaCon or something?
MegaCon. Honestly, I had a blast. I loved going there and seeing all the people in all the costumes.
Yeah.
And everybody seemed to be having fun. And there were some people that they seemed a little bit off, but everybody was having a great time. And it was really cool to see, all the different displays and all the stuff that they were selling. Even, some of the shops was just overpriced junk.
Oh yeah.
But it was still just a really cool thing. And if people are having fun and if they're not hurting anybody, whatever. But sometimes you see some of this stuff and it's just sad because that's not really what they want. It's compensating for or filling a hole that something else should occupy in their lives. And you just want to say, hey, guy, because I honestly, I didn't know. I thought the pillow thing was a joke. I thought that that was just some made up thing that they would make fun of them. But now that I'm like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
That's just sad. And it's really.
Aren't some of these guys married to these fucking pillows too?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they at least like I said, they call them their waifu, my waifu, but yeah. The other sad thing about all that is it's when the local media at any of these conventions go there, usually those are the people that they want. It's like, who's the freakiest person in this freak show that we can get on camera to illustrate, the person at Gen Con or the person at Mid-Ohio Con or the person at Origins or the person at PAX or the person at whatever. Now, some aren't quite that bad because obviously some of these conventions bring in big money to these cities. And so they want to play them up and they want to play up the attendees because they want those attendees money. But it's rare when they talk to someone like one of us at one of these conventions, and when they do, it's even more rare that they don't completely edit us out of that. So I've been fortunate in that some of the things I do as far as in costume and also, hired to model or represent a company or a vendor has allowed me to be in a situation where I've talked to media internationally even. And usually I carry myself fairly well, which I say not as some kind of boast, but I'm reasonably articulate and, and intelligent and can express myself with not too much difficulty. And so, I mean, it's not always going for the freaks and misfits and everything, but you're right, Drew. If everyone's, having fun, whatever their particular fetish is, their kink, their thing that gets them going, if the only person that's really getting hurt is themselves, but some of it's kind of sad because, there's that part of me that it's like, man, that's just, you are, I was at a Star Trek convention. I won't say where.
I was going to say, holy shit.
Yeah, I was at a Star Trek convention, and the guy and a wife had a big argument. The wife was running around in really skimpy stuff, flirting. The husband got a little bit, had a little bit to drink, but he was just upset at the wife, like, hey, you're my wife. Why are you advertising your availability? And and it escalated to the point where a gun was pulled in public.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, shit.
I kid you not.
Holy fuck.
A gun was pulled. Threats were made. The guy did what several in our community talk about a lot, where they go to zero themselves out. And that gun was put up to the guy's head. And me, like the idiot that I am, I got involved.
Oh,
and
shit. What did you do, Ray?
Yeah. Bottom line is, got the gun away from the guy. The gun was locked up by hotel security in the safe. Law enforcement was called. Law enforcement showed up, got involved. And for all of my efforts and the efforts of some friends who were backing me up, all I got was insulted by law enforcement because we were a bunch of freaking losers at the Star Trek convention. So, but fandom is a weird place, and you're right. Some people try to fill that hole that's missing in them. And, And
that ain't the place.
no, it is. It is absolutely not the place.
Yep.
And
Go to the gym. Go to the gym. Lift some weights. That's the real therapy. Get
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ride
Yeah.
a motorcycle.
Yeah. Do some
Rah.
push-ups.
yeah, and if you need to vent, make sure it's to one of your male friends, because
Mhm.
Yeah, dude. It's like it just amazes me that. You know what? I'm not going to do this.
no,
right?
go for it. I
Well,
want
like,
to hear it.
I'm talking to a guy. I'm talking to guys who have like vented in front of girls that they're hoping to eventually get romantically involved in. Yeah, dude,
Sahara Desert.
no, it's exactly. And then they're talking about how the girl like is basically put them in the friend zone. I'm like, yeah, dude, you're like,
Well, he put himself in the friend zone by
Yeah.
talking about that shit.
well, right. It's like that's why I don't want to go through it on this. Like it's been done. Like we've already
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about this. So
Mhm.
you don't. And I was trying to explain to him, like, look, man, if you need to talk about stuff that's going on in your life, you can call me. Do not call her.
You come on Masculine Geek and you vent in the chat. You come on,
Right.
you come on the show. We'll send you the link. You do not talk to your
Right.
woman.
Mhm.
No,
No, it's not. It was not even your woman. It's not even. It wasn't his woman. It's just like he's
it was
talking
just
to
a girl.
No, it was a girl that he was interested and thought that.
Oh, Jesus.
You know, thought that. Yeah,
He just talked him. He talked himself right out of some pussy.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a common mistake.
I was just like, dude, you should have just been like, you know, she says, "What's wrong?" Just go, "Nothing's wrong. I'm totally fine," and then just walked away.
Mhm.
Yep.
That would have been far better. And then it's like, dude, then you can call me up. We can come over. We can smoke some stogies, have a couple of drinks of whiskey, and you can talk about how you're being a dumbass, and I can explain to you why you're being a dumbass.
Exactly.
With something else.
Look, you
And then-
dumbass.
Yeah, and exactly. I can talk to you like a man, and I'm not gonna get like I don't have any pity for you. So that's another part of the problem. But that's just. But this is what happens when those with guys who have that kind of mentality in hyperdrive, and then they go play tabletop games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But you know, it happens. Those kind of environments at conventions can be pretty interesting. I've been to some small sci-fi conventions locally here in Indy that I have seen debauchery on levels that's almost hard to describe. And of course, some of these people are people that you really did not want to see their breast. You didn't want to. You just didn't.
The urge to crusade intensifies.
Yeah.
But
talk about Nipplegate.
yeah, but then I've been to things that, like, you know, a convention like Dragon Con, which is basically, you know, almost advertised nowadays as being Mardi Gras for geeks and nerds. And again, that's a whole other level of wild. But the thing is, you know, people go to these things to have fun, to cut loose, to play games, to hang out with their friends. For me, one of the best things about them, at least back in the day, was hanging out with a certain group of friends.
Exactly.
And the adventures we had there, whether we gamed, whether we were just walking around in costume, whether we were just sitting around drinking and, you know, basically MST3K'ing, you know, the other people at the convention. It didn't matter. But, you know, it's just, man, there are a lot of beta guys in fandom. I mean, there's a reason that stereotype exists, but conversely, there are a lot of guys like us that, you know, even if it isn't about scoring at the convention with, you know, the chick dressed as Sailor Moon or something like that, you know, we're going there because we've got something else to do. We're going there because we have a mission in mind. It's like when we go grocery shopping. We aren't there, you know, to just window shop or whatever. It's like, look, I need a box of Honey Nut Cheerios. I need a gallon of milk. I need this alcohol. And I need bacon and eggs and a loaf of bread. I am done. I can feed myself.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to impress someone, well, screw that. You know, she impresses me. Let's see how well you cook. your grandmother's Italian. Let's show me what she taught you, but no, it's just the idea is to go there to have fun. But I know for some guys, it's like going there to score, which to me seems weird because even now that the demographics have shifted quite a bit, I would rather enter the priesthood than than some of the targets in that environment. It may be a target-rich environment, but man, I'm not fishing in the waters off 3 Mile Island. It's just not happening. So, but oh well. Now back to some more geek stuff. What else?
So,
now that we ran off on some
we're past the hour mark, and usually like to keep these. So we'll go for a few more. We'll go for a few more minutes, so, and then we'll call it a night.
Anyone in the chat got any questions for us or anything?
Yeah. Any geek related questions?
Yeah, we got all the regulars here.
We do, yeah.
See Bacon and Doc and
Red.
Bull Rush was in there before, I think. Was he?
I've seen Greeny here before. It's been a while though since I've seen him in the chat, and obviously homeschool time.
They're all ordering their waifu pillows now.
All with Aaron Clarey's face on them.
That could be his next thing.
That could be.
Maybe he'll sell them at the convention, whatever they're doing.
We could completely.
Yeah, I haven't been to Mid-Ohio-Con in a while. I'm not even sure if it still goes by that name, but I used to hit several conventions in Ohio. Origins, Ohio Comic-Con, a few anime cons at one point in time. But Origins is probably the big one I hit because of the stuff I do in the gaming industry, especially with Ulysses Spiel. So that's been one of the bigger ones. The Anime Con thing, I still love anime. I still love manga.
Have you ever been to Otakon in Maryland?
No, I wanted to go because that one, actually, one of the gatherings there were kind of like the old men of anime. So it was guys who were in anime fandom back in like the 70s and 80s. And I actually ran one of the earliest anime clubs. I was a member of probably the first anime club in the state and ended up president of something that kind of came out of that back in the mid to late 1980s.
That's some serious geek cred there. Like it. Yeah.
God.
Fuck.
The fact that I have reproduced with 3 different women and produced sons defies the stereotype if you really want to get serious about my geek cred. I tell you that right now. But it's just so there are several anime cons out that way I wanted to go to only because it had an older demographic. But most of the ones now, it's a bunch of junior high school students and high school kids getting drunk and trying to get into each other's pants and, be all the different colors of the rainbow and everything else. And it's like,
yeah,
I'm aged out of that kind of nonsense. I was aged out of that kind of nonsense decades ago. So, so it's just not my scene, but I'm still into that aspect of collecting and, the hobby. So very surprised that Aaron knew Crusher Joe. I was that impressed the heck out of me. So Mr. Cappy earned some points with me on that. So
one or two throw his way, sure.
Yeah.
But there was a question from Homeschool about let's see what age and what percent. I'll throw it up on the drop off playing games. I mean, it depends. Especially if we're discussing old school D&D, obviously all of us here, I mean, we span different decades. So it depends. Some people it was something they did in high school and they leave it and they never come back to it. A lot still, like for myself, I played seriously and consistently up until about 27, 28. And then that dropped off, and I came back to it in the mid to late 30s, early 40s, and then a little inconsistently, and then back into it again this past decade. So it's been a roller coaster ride for me. But my serious gaming was when I was in high school, even before high school, 1983. I was 13 years old, and the board games and stuff, but and reading medieval fantasy and whatnot, and epic fantasy before that. So, yeah. So it's like dating. It can be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people go to their graves still playing, and some people, it's just something they did in junior high school, and that was it. Once they got into the real world, they had no time to go back to it. And for some people, it is a part of their weekly or monthly routine.
Mm-hmm.
That's like it is now. It's part of our weekly month,
when we got back into it, it was twice a month, every other Sunday for like 6 hours from the beginning of 2018 up until all this crap started. And unfortunately, we got two of the people, myself and a friend of mine and his wife were like the core group, and a couple other friends. We had two other guys that played regularly, and then kind of rotating other people that. Yeah, we had a solid campaign going for over 2 years before crap started. And unfortunately, though, they get a baby, and so that, with all the stuff going on, because, at first nobody knew if this was an actual thing or not, so that fell apart. But before that, I don't think I'd played since college. So it's been way too long.
Exactly. I will say that even when the times I was not playing actively with a group, I was still collecting. I was still reading, so I was involved in some fashion.
I would say the Knights of the Dinner Table comic book was actually a big part of my gaming during the times I was playing for someone.
Yeah, I would say. And what's his face? Competent Man mentioned he reads that. He's a follower. That is a great comic for just an overall enjoyment and its humor. And it's like as the world turns for geeks in relation to D&D, because especially when it's juxtaposed with the silliness and the seriousness of how these players take the game.
Yeah, and for me, it's actually fairly local. It's about a 45-minute drive away. Where the story
are you near Kenzer and Company?
No, I'm not. I'm not near where they are. Oh, I'm not that far, but I'm not near. But
you're near the location.
Yeah, in Muncie, Indiana, is a real place. And those places, the pizza place, which is based on the Pizza King, Hog Waller's,
Hog Waller's,
yeah, which is now torn down. But yeah, I knew where all that stuff. The steam tunnels under the college is the steam tunnels under Ball State.
Yep.
Which
what's his face? Gordo has attended, the dude in the wheelchair.
Right. So that's all stuff that's more or less in my backyard. And Muncie's one of those cities people in my state kind of make fun of in a way. It's that Muncie style. So yeah, so it's kind of in my backyard. So it's
everyone has a Weird Pete character in their comic book store.
Yeah,
it's inevitable. Right. Yeah. TJ, you have to. I'll send you a link to where you can pick them up. Or when we head out to Kansas, I'll bring the first.
We're not
four
going
issues.
to Kansas. We're going to Kansas City. That's
it's same thing. Yeah. I'll bring the first couple issues for you to read.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff. So
and it in a way it teaches about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, very much. Yeah. And kind of the old school way of doing it, especially if you go through the series where they eventually get to a new edition of the game they play, and the differences and that old school kind of mentality, and that whole idea of being a part of a community of sorts, and also having like almost like a ranking within the gameplay and stuff like that.
It's so serious that you could be like it's almost adjudicated down to the player level and what you can do and can't do, and like you can bring someone up before gamer court, and you
Yeah.
you could have your GM license revoked, so you can't run games anymore officially.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot of fun, and so if you know the game or are into gaming, you'll get more out of it than just the average person would. The average person's still going to find it funny. But if you're a gamer, you'll get more out of it. If you're someone who's been playing the game since the late 70s or sometime in the 80s, you will get it on a whole other level. It's just,
That's for sure.
So good stuff. So I recommend it as well.
Indeed. All right, gentlemen, we're coming up on the hour and 20-minute mark. Final questions in the chat. We'll field them. Going once.
The Bacon wants to know where to get his Waifu Pillow.
That's a good question. I have no experience with any of that stuff. I have no idea. With Aaron's face on it, I have no idea. I'm sure you could get
probably from his site, right? From his website.
Maybe, yeah, or his wife's website.
Yeah.
Or it's not entirely disproven that his wife is a Waifu Pillow.
Yeah.
So
he's joking.
Am I?
His Waifu Pillow's OnlyFans site.
That's right. Aaron Clarey's waifupillow.com.
God. Do not buy. Oh God.
Someone needs to set up that Twitter account like ASAP.
Right.
No, it's gonna end up being a blogspot.com site.
Aaron Clarey's waifu.com.
No, this is the episode. Aaron Clarey's Waifu Pillow episode.
There you go. When's the next D&D game going to start? What are you talking about? Next D&D game? You're talking about? Well, let's clarify. There's a campaign is a series of adventures or games or sessions that fall under the umbrella of one story arc. Now you could have a one-off where you play for 4 or 5 hours and then you're done. So. You're talking about when we're going to have the next canceled one. Well, next week we've got the fireside chats where we're talking about all things liquor and intoxicating, wine, bourbon, beer, mead, everything. It's going to be a good show. We've got some guests coming on. Some people in the chat will be joining us. So that's next Wednesday. The 26th, TJ and I will be in Kansas City. We can probably broadcast the game from there as far as TJ and I being in the same room slinging dice. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure yet. Bacon, I have no idea. I'll keep you all posted. You'll be the first to know. You're in the inner circle, as it were. So
the circle of trust.
That's right.
Weight training question.
A weight training question.
We got time. I'll do a real quick answer for that if they want.
There's never a quick answer with you, Drew, on a weight training question.
I'll give them the abbreviated version, and if they want the super detailed explanation, demonstration, all that, they can join the bay.com hit list group.
Okay, cool. Let's go around the. Well, do you want to answer the question again?
Sure. If they want to ask it, they said can. They asked if they could ask a question, but they didn't ask their question.
No, you can. It's off topic, but I'll allow it. I'm a benevolent leader. Benevolent control. That's what it's about. Exactly, but it's very limited, and there is a vetting process because I do not want spurgs and retards. I don't have time for that anonymous bullshit.
Amen.
Oh, they said they wanted to ask a question, but I don't see. Okay, they're typing it.
So TJ, where can people buy your book? Where just at Amazon, or do you have a website?
Well, go to Amazon and just type in The Song of Wolfgar, or you can also do TJ Martinell. The links to all my books will be on my website, tjmartinell.com.
Yeah, just go on Amazon and type your name in, right?
Well, it's
or is it hit or miss?
Because some of you have not left reviews. My books are not getting the same kind of search results. So if you type in Men Who Walk Alone, it'll take some time to get that. And then also there's some other books of mine. Yeah, thanks, Drew. Appreciate it.
There you go. Leave a review.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right
you could leave a review.
under the curse of the waifu pillow.
Curse of the Waifu Pillow.com.
Curse of the waifu pillow.
God damn it, Mictobus. He doesn't want any spurgs or retards in his hit list either.
Yeah, so you can go to tjmarnell.com and I'll have the links to all my different books. Honestly, guys, pick up the Stringers and start reading through this trilogy. It's everything that's going on now I called 8 years ago, so do it. Well, do it.
You're like a sage. Do it.
I know. I'm the prophet. I'm like if I was like an Old Testament prophet, I'd be a major prophet, like up there with Isaiah and Jeremiah or something like that, in terms of the number of prophecies. So.
Okay. So Mike Menser's principles were not Mike Menser's principles. Mike learned everything that he later wrote about and talked about from the Nautilus inventor, Arthur Jones. So when you're reading Mike's books, when you're listening to him during his interviews and his seminars, what you are hearing is his interpretation of the Nautilus training principles from, again, Arthur Jones. And Arthur Jones was right about almost everything, and I would take his approach over Vince Gironda's anytime. Vince Gironda just he was very creative with some of his exercises, and some of his nutrition information was good, but Arthur Jones was way ahead of him and ahead of just about everybody else in the field at the time. And still, some of the things that Arthur was saying back in the 1970s are ahead of a lot of other people that are giving training advice right now. So yeah, we're not really talking about Menser's principles. We're talking about Arthur Jones' principles that Menser helped to popularize with bodybuilders later in the, his Iron Man magazine articles and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely. If you've got to choose between Menser or really Arthur Jones and Vince Gironda, Menser and Jones all day long. No question. I don't even have to give it any consideration.
For both diet and exercise?
Yeah, well, diet, I'd go a little bit more with Gironda and some of the old school bodybuilders on that, although they really weren't that far apart on these things.
Okay.
And I knew Mike Menser, I knew Arthur, both of them, Arthur Jones, so I got to actually spend a good amount of time talking with each, and without going into, again, I don't want to turn this into a big long thing, but both were brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
They knew their stuff. Jeez. Yeah, let's all right.
Is that a whole other show right there?
I'll keep it real brief. I've met him and we've talked online. I like him. I think he's a real nice guy. He is a brilliant marketer. He has a talent for creating viral posts. He's very, very good. I would follow him just to study how he promotes what he does, but his exercise advice is just awful. He gives a lot of advice that's completely unfounded. It's a lot of like Men's Health and Bodybuilding magazine nonsense mashed together. Again, real nice guy. I like it. We've met, we've talked. Follow him and study how he markets his stuff. It's nonsense, but his marketing is great. And so you can benefit from following him if you don't take any of his exercise advice seriously, but you do study how he markets it because he really is good at that.
Okay. What would you
got great hair.
Okay. What would you say, especially since obviously restrictions are starting to lift at gyms and in various states and so forth. So but if someone's stuck at home, doesn't have weights, but wants to exercise, what are 3 to 5 exercises that you would say every man should be doing whether he's 22 or 52. What 3 to 5 exercise should every guy be doing
They
every
should be
day?
doing a lot more than 3 to 5 exercises.
Right.
I'm going to give you a super short version because this could literally be hours and hours. You should train everything from your neck to your ankles.
Okay.
There's not a single muscle group in your body that you should not give attention to, because if anything is not trained, it's going to be a weak link.
Right.
A lot of people focus on the big compound lifts. With body weight, you've got your body weight squats, chin-ups, rowing, push-ups, pike push-ups, which are a safer and saner alternative to handstand push-ups. Hip raise or prone trunk extension is the closest replacement for like a stiff-legged deadlift or a deadlift. Not quite the same, but targets the same muscle groups. And that'll hit most of the muscle groups in your body, but you still also need to be doing neck flexion and extension. You need to be doing wrist flexion and extension and gripping, and you need to be doing heel raise and dorsiflexion. You need to be doing something for the abdominal muscles. And there's ways to do all of this stuff with either body weight or statics, or what people call isometrics, using strap or a combination of strap, bar, bench, or things that you can find around the house. I've written a book specifically about how to train with just body weight. I actually wrote this back in 2011, and it just kind of exploded when all the gyms started closing down. And that's Project Kratos, which is available through the store on bay.com.
Okay, great.
But if you could only do 5, squat, chin up, push up, or dips if you've got parallel bars. Row.
Use chairs.
It's a little awkward with chairs. It can be done. You want to be up a little bit higher.
It's as awkward as talking to Aaron Clarey without his waifu pillow.
Yeah. And pike push-up, not handstand. I'm not going to go off on the leg. A pike push-up is a better option than a handstand push-up for the shoulders. It is more practical for most people. It is safer for most people to be able to do. So if you could only do 5, those would be the ones, but you don't want to neglect any of the other muscle groups.
Gotcha.
You want to train everything.
All right. We're going to get lost in the weeds here. Not that this is not an interesting topic. It is, but 1 hour, 31 minutes. We're done. That's it. Save your questions for next time, or join Drew's hit list, or hit group, as it were, and you get all your questions answered personally, and it's worth the time, money, and effort. So go do that now. All right, let's do some housekeeping here. Drew, where can the main place everyone can find you?
They can find me at bay.com. It's BAYE.com, or at Bay Drew on Twitter.
Gotcha.
Had to flip it around.
Gotcha. And Robert, yourself?
Robert Kuzlin on Twitter and on YouTube.
Fantastic. And last but not least, the illimitable TJ Martinell.
You can go to tjmartinell.com. It'll have everything you're looking for.
There you go.
Aaron's Waifu Pillows.
Soon. That's gonna. Yeah, we'll provide a link. TJ will be the middleman for that. Oh shit, that's funny. Okay,
Masculine Geek Enterprises.
That's right. Shh, that's next. We have other things in the works that'll be released shortly that have nothing to do with Waifu Pillows. So, sorry, Aaron. All right, everyone. It was a great chat. It's nice seeing everybody. Some new faces, or some new virtual faces, some new virtual chats, as it were. And until next time, keep this fire burning, keep the lead flying down range, and do not take any wood nickels.